So here are the match stats there. PSG just absolutely dominant in this one. And Ale, I'm going to go to you first on this one because really and truly, we know that you were the only one choosing Real Madrid to win. We all said PSG, but they were absolutely blown out of the water.
You know that the stats don't even actually tell the whole story. As dominant as those stats were, the game itself was even worse from the perspective of Real Madrid. This was a backside whooping. PSG completely dominated Real Madrid in every facet of the game. And I can honestly tell you that this game was over even before it started. The lineups come out, and we were having this conversation as we're watching. How are these pieces going to fit for Real Madrid? And my first comment to Stewie was, they don't have enough players in the midfield. They don't have enough numbers in the midfield to try to contain the best part of PSG, which is that midfield. And so while we can focus on the individual mistakes of Raúl Asensio, of course, Antonio Rudiger, of course, before the Raúl Asensio mistake, PSG already had a clear chance by Nuno Mendes, and he took a great save from Thibaut Courtois, where they had been broken through. It was they were either going to get broken through 5 minutes in, 10 minutes in, 20 minutes in. It was only a matter of time. This setup from Xabi Alonso and the player personnel that he chose for this particular game, the pieces did not fit. He essentially, what he tried to do, and I have to imagine, I have to start Mbappe. And I need to start Gonzalo Garcia as well, because he's been great. And Vini's going to have to start too. So how do we make these pieces fit? I'm going to put Valverde out of the midfield, out into the right back position, and I'm not actually addressing his absence in the midfield. So you've taken the player that gives you the most activity through the midfield, at least defensively, the more back and forth players that you have in Valverde, you toss him out to the right-hand side, and you don't cover his absence in the midfield. It made absolutely no sense. We were talking about it ahead of the game, and we actually saw it play out. PSG far superior to Real Madrid in every which way, and the midfield of PSG completely dominated the pace of this game.
Robert, what did you think of how Xabi Alonso lined up his men? Because we were speaking about the players that wouldn't take part and how he would be able to incorporate Mbappe as well as Garcia.
Well, Ali's already spoken about it because they played Gonzalo Garcia on the right-hand side, and he's not a right-sided player. He's a centre-forward, an out-and-out centre-forward, a goal scorer. He's proved that in the last 3 or 4 games. So to play him out on the right-hand side wasn't quite right. Vini Jr. went on the left, went on the right. Mbappe played through the middle. They kept on swapping around. But it wasn't just the formation and the lack of players in midfield. It's what you do within that system. Now, Real Madrid didn't do either. You either press the ball as a team or you back off and stay compact. If you don't press it at the front, then you have to be compact and work really hard in midfield and at the back to make sure there's no space. They didn't do either. The midfield players, I watched, and I don't particularly get on with him at the moment in terms of how I think he plays and his work rate, Bellingham. I watched Tchouaméni, I watched Goulet, and they're standing in their positions, they're keeping their shape, but PSG are running in between them and getting the ball. There's no energy, there's no effort, there's no determination to go and win the ball. If your front three aren't really pressing the ball, because they were dropping a little bit deeper and giving PSG time on the ball, then you need to work harder the next 7 players. They've got to be really compact. They've got to work hard. They've got to make good decisions. And Real Madrid made poor decisions all over the field. The brilliant goal that we saw, the great move down the right-hand side. First of all, Rudiger came out into midfield and got played around. Bellingham got played around by Hakimi. The next recovery runs aren't right. All those things were wrong. As brilliant as PSG were, they were made to look even better by a really poor Real Madrid performance.
Wow, I've never seen Robbo break down something so passionately. I can't tell if he's impressed by PSG or disgusted by Real Madrid. Well, let's go to someone who is definitely always disgusted in Mark Ogden. And Frank Leboeuf, who is always happy, especially when PSG gets a win. But Augie, let me come to you first because you were there at the MetLife Stadium. You heard from the boys in studio. What were your thoughts on what went wrong for Real Madrid?
Well, I mean, what went wrong for Real Madrid? They were playing the best team in the world, and I think PSG really showed it today. I take Robbo's point that Real were poor, and in terms of the personnel, why don't you play Danny Carvajal at right? But play Dani Carvajal at right back, put Valverde in midfield, then that kind of solves the problem. But PSG were brilliant today. I mean, I was watching that thinking, you know, Barcelona, the Pep's Barcelona, the 2009-2011 team were the best team in the world. They're the reference point. And PSG, you know, they're getting close to that. That midfield that PSG have, Vitinha, João Neves and Fabian Ruiz, they can do everything that Barcelona team could do. Xavi, Andres, Iniesta and Sergio Busquets, they do it all. Obviously, they haven't got the longevity that Barcelona had, and that is a test now. Can PSG build on this, and can they become the dominant force that Barcelona were? But they are a really, really good team, and they absolutely destroy Real with their movement, their pace. Dembele, Hakimi. I mean, you can go on, but you know, Real were very, very poor today, and it could have been 6 or 7. At one point during the game, we actually asked our stats people what is Real Madrid's heaviest ever defeat. It's 8-1, by the way, against Espanyol. It didn't come close to that, but there were times they could have been 5 or 6 quite easily. So, all credit to PSG, they were outstanding today.
Frank, let's bring you in, shall we? Because I know you're extremely happy. How happy are you with what you saw from your boys?
That was absolutely magnificent in a way that they confirm what we all thought. They are the best team in the world, and you know, we try to find what went wrong to every opponent playing against Paris Saint-Germain, where what went wrong for the others is the fact that they play against Paris Saint-Germain, starting with Liverpool, following with Arsenal, then Atletico Madrid, a little bit Bayern Munich, of course Inter Miami, and today Real Madrid. They don't know how to cope with that team, because that team is perfect from the goalkeeper to the striker, and they can permute, they can substitute players, they all play the same football, they all understand each other, they compensate everything. I had Hakimi talking in the press conference after the game, saying how João Neves was so important for him to free him and to allow him to go forward, because he was compensating. They all work together where we don't see that to the other team. Paris Saint-Germain, yes, perfect. Jamie Carragher made on the social network a comment, which is kind of an early statement, but he said, you know, when I see Paris Saint-Germain playing, it's like Barcelona with Pep Guardiola at the time. It's the beginning of it. I don't know if it's going to last as long as that fantastic team, but they're unplayable right now. They're really unplayable, and it can be, yes, of course, not Real Madrid, because Real Madrid, we have seen all the season long, the last season, how average they've been. But we are talking about Liverpool, we are talking about Arsenal, even Atletico Madrid with the way.
Oh, I believe we lost Frank there. We'll get him back. Too much excitement.
They had enough.
To Frank's point, and I'm in full agreement. And while there's a lot of criticism for Real Madrid, no question, I really feel the bigger story here is PSG and how good they continue to show themselves to be.
Unplayable.
Coming into this tournament, we weren't quite sure how teams would address it. Is it like a pre-season kind of glorified for so many of these clubs? And PSG come into this as defending European champions. They probably had the biggest excuse as to wanting to downing tools without there being any kind of blowback. Yet again, in this tournament, you just feel that they've gotten better and better. And as you look at Real Madrid and you look at Xabi Alonso, what he did right, what he did wrong, maybe more to the point, Real Madrid's team, to match up against PSG, you have to have a match of quality and running. Whether you want to argue if Real Madrid have the quality, maybe we could. They certainly don't have the running. Outside of Valverde, I'm not sure who stays step for step with anybody in PSG's outfield 10. And as a result, this was always going to be a hiding to nothing for Real Madrid, and that's exactly how it proved. In the build-up to the third goal, just as PSG are playing the ball around in the back, we were sitting there watching the game, and I remember Ali and Robbo talking about the starting position of Hakimi, how important it is to PSG and how advanced it was. And all of a sudden, through him, through that right-hand side, that third goal comes. Because nobody, certainly in the white of Real Madrid, could cope with the legs of PSG on this showing. And given what we've seen, again, we could ask questions as to who in European football, or indeed world football, has both the quality and the legs to match PSG. Certainly nobody in this tournament. Is a big question to ask with the start or restart of the Champions League.
What PSG do so well is that the hardest thing in football is to change your pace. You can play at high intensity, you know, all the time, or you can play it slow and keep the ball. What PSG do is pick the right time to go quickly and the right time to slow it down. So if you want to play a passing game, they pass slowly, they pass it, and then suddenly they see the forward pass and there's a break forward. And that's what happened for that goal, because it was actually Donnarumma that played the ball out to Hakimi, and they tried to press for once, Real Madrid, and he played round that, and suddenly we're watching the game, whoa, and your words, oh, here we go. You can see it all open up. And they just do it so quickly. It's brilliant from PSG.
And so to that point, the reason that you're able to have Hakimi so far up the field, or Nuno Mendes for that matter, so far up the field. Again, Nuno Mendes could have scored a goal 5 minutes in. That's how dominant PSG were right off the bat. It's because you trust that the players that are showing for the ball in the midfield, that not only are they not going to turn the ball over, that they're going to find the splitting pass that now frees up Hakimi and frees up Nuno Mendes. So you're no longer thinking about how do we get from this phase, from the defensive third into the middle third. You already know that you're going to be in the middle third because you trust that your midfield players are going to be able to get on the turn and find the splitting pass, which then allows Hakimi to be in a position where he is 30 yards further forward than he should be. Nuno Mendes, the same thing. You know who's not 30 yards further back defending? In this case, Vini Jr. He's not tracking that run. Is Kylian Mbappe tracking that run on the other side for Nuno? No, it's not happening. And so if you have, they're not fearful. PSG are not fearful of what happens if they turn the ball over because they know they're not going to turn the ball over. And so therefore, that puts a premium on defending from attacking players. And what do we know for certain about Real Madrid attacking players, in particular Vini Jr. and Kylian Mbappe? That they're not gonna chase, that they're not going to defend. And so Hakimi further forward, Nuno Mendes further forward, nobody pressing the ball, then it becomes a whole lot easier for PSG to do what they do better than everybody else in the world.
Here's the other thing, too. When we start looking at this PSG team and their personalities, and you talk about quality, every single position, if we're picking the best player in every single position in the park, a PSG player is in the conversation. Yeah. No, you might decide, well, no, I prefer this one over that one. But in that conversation, every single player from PSG starting 11 is in that conversation to be had. And that speaks to, again, the quality that Luis Enrique can call on, and more to the point, the running that we saw.
And also what he's done with the team. Because if you looked at those players a year ago, would you have said they were the best players in the world?
Not even a year ago.
No,
6 months ago.
But he has found a formation and a system of play that's made these players look like world-class players. And that's what they are at the moment, world-class players in a world-class team.
And that's absolutely wild to think, considering that PSG has been littered with world-class players before and were not able to get the main job done, which was win the Champions League. And they had a certain Kylian Mbappe. I believe we have our Frank Leboeuf back. Frank, let me come to you on Mbappe, because, of course, that was the biggest headline heading into this semi-final, the fact that he was facing his former club, and a club that we know he does care about a lot. But it wasn't a good day for your boy.
Oh, no, of course not. And that's just a confirmation that what happened with Mbappe is the result of Mbappe behavior. What he was doing in the past years with Paris Saint-Germain didn't allow Paris Saint-Germain to win the Champions League. And we have to say the truth. Even if we think the best of Mbappe when he has the ball and everything, we all consider that he doesn't do enough. And we see it with Real Madrid since he signed for Real Madrid. He doesn't do the job like he didn't do the job when he was at Paris Saint-Germain. He has a part of working defensively when he loses the ball. So, but that was predictable. And everybody agreed that if he didn't work, if he didn't decide to work with Real Madrid like he wasn't working for Paris Saint-Germain, that would be the same result. And it's what we have. So that guy has to wake up, really. He has to wake up, because he's a fantastic player, but that's not enough to consider that he's having a good career. That's insane, because he ended up being the Pichichi of the Spanish Liga, but everybody, people who know football, can consider that it's not enough. And if you want to be a great, great player, you have to do something else. He has to wake up.
Well, what do you think, actually, that Kylian Mbappe thinks about himself right now? Because it's one thing to see PSG from afar, see them winning Champions League, and while that would have been a powerful message to him, now he saw it up close. And we are not hanging with these guys. The team that I'm with right now cannot hang with the team that I was. That was my team. That was my group. But my group did not play close to that well when I was there.
Yeah.
And now the group that I'm in cannot match that. And what's the difference between them and us? Oh, wait a minute. I was there, and they're better without me. And I came here, and you can argue that they're worse with me. Does a player like Kylian Mbappe, as good as he is, as talented as he is he able to have that conversation with himself? Is there enough humility there to have that conversation and say, that team that I left has now become the best team in the world? And the team that I'm with right now was the best team in the world, and it's no longer the case.
The answer is he will say, 44 goals this season, I've done my job. That's what he will be thinking. I'm sure that's the case.
And I'm sure you disagree.
Oh, I disagree. That's what he will be thinking. He'll say, I've scored 44 goals. I've done my job. It's everybody else.
It's
That's what
everybody.
players do.
You know those strikers are like.
I know, Shaka. They're not team players, are they?
No.
But Robbo, just to the point, sticking with Mbappe and sticking with Real Madrid, we know that Xabi Alonso is still getting used to the team and whatnot. But does it look, from what we have seen, at least in this Club World Cup, that he has a bigger job to do than what we originally thought?
Well, we thought not quite so much when he stuck to the system that he'd been playing in the previous games. You could see what he was trying to do. There was some good rotation. You could see that Bellingham was going to play in the number 10 role, and he was going to make forward runs. He was going to play with two front players, whoever those two front players were. But he tried to fit people into the team today, and it didn't work. And he's got to be saying to himself, I made a massive mistake, and I can't do that again. I've got to be braver. I've got to pick the team that I think can go and win the game, not pick individuals that I have to pick, or that, because he scored 5 goals, Gonzalo Garcia, I've got to pick him, and Mbappe, he's a star player, so I've got to pick him. You pick the team that can win the game. He picked the wrong team today.
And if you watch PSG against Bayern Munich, and for long periods of time, Bayern Munich were creating issues against PSG, it's because they were willing to press higher up the field. It's because they were trying to disrupt that ball into Vitinha, that ball into Joao Neves, that ball into Fabian Ruiz, or whoever it may be. That they were trying to get into those passing lanes. They were trying to get in the faces of the center back so they didn't have a free pass, a free outlet.
And do you think Harry Kane's the most athletic player? But he did a job, because he said, OK, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to force it to the fullback. We're going to go and press there. We're going to make it difficult for PSG to get out.
So, in order for Bayern Munich to make it difficult, it had to be that front line that was willing to press, that was willing to run around. So I go back to an initial point. When are Vinny Jr. and Kylian Mbappe, when have they ever, and when will they ever actually be a front line that goes and presses? They have to look, if I were these players, I would look to the players on the other side. And I would look at Dembele and Due and Kvaratskhelia and see them pressing, see them getting on top of players, see them participating in the defensive part of the game, and how that helps PSG. Real Madrid, and these two players in particular, are not willing to do that. Why did it work so well with Gonzalo Garcia? Because he was willing to go on press. And so then that disrupts that first pass, which then allows the second line, defending line of Real Madrid to come and win the ball and regain possession of the ball higher up the field. Until these guys are not willing to do that, Real Madrid are going to be in trouble, because Xabi Alonso with Bayer Leverkusen, what did he do? He went and pressed. If he expects these guys to do that, the conversation has to be very truthful and very honest. This is what I want you to do. And so far, it hasn't happened.
Well, interesting that Ali brings that up, Shaka, because, again, we say that there's a couple of teams in this world for managers that can make their life difficult. You say to lose with one team is one thing, but to lose with the Real Madrid is a different thing. To lose with the Manchester United is a different thing. The pressure, the eyes are on you. Xabi Alonso, yes, he has won glory, but as Ali was saying now, you're going to have to be a lot honest with some bigger name players as well. So is this going to be his ultimate test now?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure how Manchester United come into that conversation.
Shaka, you know what I mean.
Or Toulouse. When were Toulouse ever?
I said to lose with them. A lot of of eyes are on
I'm
you.
not sure how you shoehorn them in there. But
I know what you were saying.
Thank you, Robbo.
But to your point, the ask of Xabi Alonso is not new. There's nothing that's been revealed to Xabi Alonso during the course of this tournament, or indeed during the course of these 90 minutes. The inability to answer that very question is why Carlo Ancelotti is no longer Real Madrid manager. How do you fit Vinicius Jr. and Kylian Mbappe into a starting 11 and fashion that into a Champions League winning team? Now, that's what Xabi Alonso has been tasked with. Now, Gonzalo Garcia comes in and throws a different headache, so to speak, during the course of this tournament that Xabi Alonso now has to figure out. But that's ultimately how and where he'll be judged. Can he get the best out of them in terms of a Champions League winning team? On this evidence, it's no. But, again, that he knew when he arrived.
Yeah.
We knew when he accepted this job that was going to be how his tenure will be defined.
Well, my spidey senses are telling me that Mark Ogden wants to get in on this conversation. But, Augie, I know you're roasting out there, but you were there in the stadium as well. And I just wanted, because we've been following this tournament as well, and apart from Boca Juniors and Flamengo, we know that the next best supported team here has been Real Madrid. I think it was over 70,000 in the MetLife Stadium today. I'm sure majority were cheering for Real Madrid. So what was the reaction like? Were they shell-shocked when PSG won so dominantly?
I think they were shell-shocked, yeah. It was a sea of white shirts. It was absolutely full of Real Madrid fans, and there was a very small corner of PSG fans. And, yeah, there was a sense of shock there, but also I think a sense of appreciation as well. I think a sense of appreciation that, you know, a lot of the fans in this stadium aren't you're kind of game-to-game Bernabeu, you know, Madridistas. These are the fans that watched them from afar. And I think they watched PSG and thought, I might start supporting PSG next week because they're better than Real Madrid. I mean, they are such an exciting team to watch. But just to pick up on what the lad was saying, I know you've gone in depth about the work rate of the Real Madrid team and the Mbappes. There was a stat that flashed up at half-time, a FIFA stat. On average, it took Real Madrid 45 seconds to win the ball back in the first half. It took PSG 23 seconds. And they've got the best team in the world working twice as hard as Real Madrid to get the ball back. And that's why they won today. And that's the problem that Xabi Alonso's got. He's got to make this team work a lot harder than it is. You can get by with one player that doesn't put the work in. You know, Lionel Messi never used to work that hard for Barcelona, but you can't have Mbappe, Vinny Jr., even Jude Bellingham picking and choosing when they run. And that's the issue. But that, for me, that stat was like, you know, Real Madrid are not good enough to play against PSG, taking twice as long to win the ball back, and that was why they got hammered.
Hammered is exactly what they did. Well, Xabi Alonso has a couple of weeks to kind of wonder how he's going to make this Real Madrid team bounce back, but La Liga is back on ESPN on August 15th. Real Madrid will open their campaign against Osasuna and the reigning champions Barcelona. They will be in action on the 16th against Mallorca.